when I say do it all, I mean do it all. Like every texture of hair, like really get in there and be somebody who no matter who sits in your chair, you feel comfortable, that you have the skills to also make them comfortable. My name is Chad Harlow, and I am a guest artist, wig designer, for the production of Cinderella here at FSU. I got started doing wigs. Actually, I was a performer for about 12 years in New York, and toward the end of my career, I was trying to find something else to transition into that also felt very creative. I'd always liked doing hair, and I thought, well, that's something that's very creative still, and I could do that. So I went back to school and got my cosmetology license in New York. And I worked in a salon for about 2 years, and I was looking to transition out of that, and by happenstance, I got on the subway to go home one night, and lo and behold, in front of me was the hair supervisor from the last show I did on Broadway as a performer. And he said, I need somebody immediately. And I said, I don't know anything about wigs. And he said, I will teach you. And so I went and I did a test with him, and he hired me, and I put in my notice at the salon, and I started 2 weeks later, and 13 Broadway shows later, here I am. So, finding work for a hairdresser on Broadway is not necessarily very challenging. There is always a need for hairdressers. There are a lot of Broadway shows, and the call for wigs in shows seems to get greater and greater. My favorite production, and it may just be because it was my first, but it was doing nice work. It was set in the 20s. Those hairstyles, the finger waves were really challenging, and in order to master them, it took a while, but the challenge of trying to replicate that every performance, it was really rewarding when it all clicked and it all made sense to me. It was a great cast. I met Kelly O'Hara on that cast, who I did her personal hair for events for a little while, and a lot of the people in the ensemble were friends of mine, either through performing, because I had just left the industry performing a couple of years before. So it was really special. It was a great transition show, but I also learned so much about wigs. My main focus was to support Meg, the costume designer, in her vision for the time period and where she wanted to set the show. I love having the fittings with the actors, because once you see who they are and compare it to the rendering and then start thinking about their face shape and the time period, you really get to start to play a little bit more and try to customize it to them. For instance, Jonah, who plays Sebastian, is one of the more elite characters in the show. He works for the prince, and when they said the men would be in cues, normally you think of a very colonial look, with the pullback and a ponytail, that they would wear. But in his fitting, he had this really great natural hair of his own that sort of parted in the center and had this little wave to it. And I was like, we need that in his look in the show. So this whole front was inspired by his everyday look. It's interesting. We sort of have this ongoing struggle in New York to sort of be recognized. There's never been a Tony Award for hair and makeup design, but there's a Tony Award for costume design. But there's one gentleman who has a Tony Award, and unfortunately he passed away this last year, Paul Huntley, who was given an honorary Tony Award for his hair. I believe it was for Hairspray, his design for Hairspray. But the man was a legend, and you think about a show like Hairspray, and what is it without those hairstyles? What is Wicked without Glinda's curls, or without Elphaba's long, they are, or her green makeup? They're just as important a part of a production. Go for it, number one. Number two, get to cosmetology school. and get your basic training taken care of. I know in my union in New York City, we represent most of the East Coast for film and TV and for theater, and one of our big requirements for hairdressers is to have your cosmetology license, or now we offer people admission if they have a barbering license. There are a whole slew of professions that go along with any production, whether it's backstage, whether it's in front of house, whether it's in the box office, whether it's in marketing. For kids to realize that a little bit earlier on can open their eyes to the idea of, if they start studying it now, imagine where they would be by the time they get to be adults.